Hello, I'm fascinated by Mike Lynch on TV today, and two particular interviews that he did. And they're quite extraordinary. The first one I'm thinking of was with Kay Burley, I think her name was, on Sky, and the other one was with Richard Madeley on ITV. Now, Richard Madeley and I, of course, have crossed swords in the past, and indeed, I've even had a hug from both him and the real Judy. But, I'm not uncritical. I'm not uncritical. Now, Kay was insistent and slightly irritating. She was asking what would Lynch do on a picket line, or what has he encouraged his union members to do on a picket line. And he kept pointing to a picket line that was actually assembled behind him. Kay, however, wanted to evoke images of the miners' strike in the 1980s. She knew exactly where she was going. And she claimed in a post that she made later that Lynch was flustered. Well, not at all. Not at all. He was very much in control of that interview. He was calm, slightly dismissive, and utterly coherent, and he countered what I can only describe as a passive-aggressive interview technique. So I'll give you an example. Lynch said, you seem to have gone off into the world of the surreal, because she kept repeating the same question again and again. And she says, I'm sorry you feel the need to ridicule me. I don't see that as a ridicule. And as for the Richard Madeley interview, that began with a challenge, are you a communist? Again, Lynch seemed to me to be far from flustered, but equally would not be pulled down that line of questioning. So well done. Again, tweets and social media suggest that he was flustered. And again, I would say not at all. Now, in contrast, I well remember the bombast to the pugnacity of Arthur Scargill, who himself was on the picket lines today. It was like a clock turned back to the 1980s, or at least that's certainly what the media would want us to believe. Actually, Diane Abbott was also there on the picket lines, taunting Sir Keir Starmer, who had told senior Labour figures not to go on the picket lines, so she was defying his orders. Now, you've got to remember that Keir Starmer had at one point campaigned for Diane Abbott to be Home Secretary should Labour be in power. So Diane Abbott is not to be immediately dismissed as irrelevant. Now, I think it's quite reasonable to question the system, particularly a system which isn't working. We know that the rail system is not working. Anybody who's been on rail journeys will know that. I think it's quite reasonable to challenge the rail employers and the rail officials and the organisations. I think there is value in a well-timed and reasonable strike. I wonder, however, whether a strike that comes in advance of proper negotiations is really going to get all the community or the community that uses the trains on side, whether it's going to get the public, whether it's going to get the people who are dependent on trains, the commuters, for example, whether it's going to get them on the side of the unions. And I think a strike that takes place in the final days of the A-level and GCSE school exams, I think this is ill-timed and, frankly, headline-hugging. It's the sort of stunt that Priti Patel or Grant Shapps, yes, might have dreamt up. Maybe they're working in cahoots with Mr. Lynch. There is an element of this strike that just makes me think it is trying to grab attention rather than to solve problems. And there are such deep problems that need solving. I don't know whether this is necessarily the way forward.